We're in a battle of good versus evil at this point. And you know what? If you're not willing to sacrifice your career or life,
Yeah.
you're not built for this conflict. All right, Bob, I want to talk about J.K. Rowling, the well-known British author. She wrote the book Harry Potter. She's taken a lot of heat over the last year or so because she's not on board with the transgender movement and the feminist or the transgender crowd, or she's been kind of thrown into the cancel culture jail to some degree. And so she had a Twitter exchange with Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. Everybody knows I'm a big Matt Walsh supporter and fan. And so she had an exchange with him where, she doesn't like Matt Walsh. There's a lot of women that agree with his What is a Woman documentary, but they can't stand Matt Walsh. And so she had, let me make sure I do this properly. She had tweeted at Matt something about endless death and rape threats, threats of loss of life. She tweeted an attack at Matt. And I jumped in because I'm a Budinsky. But I kind of like J.K. Rowling, and I certainly love Matt Walsh. And so I jumped in and responded to her tweet at Matt and saying respectfully, and I sincerely mean respectfully, you need to fall back and support men like Matt Walsh. You're not built for this conflict. The failure and cowardice of men got us into this mess. Matt is standing up. You need to support him. Men have to fix this. Yeah, and I included the respectfully and the doubling down on respect because I know what I'm saying is very aggressive and could be misconstrued, and next thing you know, I'm a misogynist, which maybe I am, I don't know. Based on their definitions, I probably am. But I really have a great deal of respect for J.K. Rowling. I have a great deal of respect for just women in general. And so, to my surprise, I think 2 or 3 days later, J.K. Rowling responded to me with a series of tweets. And I want to ask you about them because I want a biblical perspective. She wasn't, because I feel like I'm coming from a biblical perspective, but she tweeted back in the first of 4 tweets to me, respectfully, I've been facing down the punch and kill TERFs brigade for a while now, and not once have I thought, what I really want is to hand this over to a man who thinks feminism is one of the worst things to happen to Western civilization. And so I just want to stop there and just unpack this first tweet, because J.K. Rowling, I don't think at this point knows, and because I haven't responded yet, I told her I was going to reflect, and this is part of my reflection. I think feminism is one of the worst things to happen to Western civilization, and I want a biblical perspective. Am I wrong? Are Matt Walsh and I wrong for thinking that?
Can I ask a clarifying question first?
Yeah.
When you told her she wasn't built for this,
Yeah.
what did you mean when you said that?
I meant that her original tweet was somewhat complaining about the blowback that women get for standing up on this issue, because this is all related to Macy Gray, the singer who on Piers Morgan's show said, hey, look, I don't care if you have surgery, that don't make you a woman.
Yeah.
And then backed up immediately, went on Today's Show and said, woman is a vibe, and LGBTQ are the greatest heroes we have, or something along those lines. And Matt Walsh criticized Macy Gray for backpedaling. And so JK's jumping in there like, hey man, you just don't understand the backlash we take. And Macy, she's being sympathetic towards Macy and her career being on the line. And so what I'm saying, like, if that's your mindset, you're not built for this conflict, because this conflict, and again, I didn't want to go all into it because I don't know if JK has any religious beliefs, but we are in final conflict stage. Things, the battle against truth is so clear cut now that what I'm saying is, look, we're in a battle of good versus evil at this point. And you know what? If you're not willing to sacrifice your career or life,
Yeah.
you're not built for this conflict. And so if you want to hold on to your career, you're not built for this. If you're afraid to sacrifice your life, you're not built for this. And there's been a reason why men have traditionally gone off to war. When there's great sacrifice to be made, it has been us who have been willing to make those sacrifices. And so when I look at Matt Walsh, this dude is willing to sacrifice his career. He's willing to sacrifice his life. He's willing to lay his life on the line to stand for truth. I believe that about myself. I don't put myself in the same category as Matt because Matt has a wife and kids, and that's why I honor him and like, wow, that takes a pair.
Yeah.
And but basically, I'm saying J.K., Macy Gray, they want their careers to survive, and I don't know if they're willing to lay their life down for this. And we are in a final conflict stage where people, if you're not willing to lay your life down for truth, you're not built for this conflict.
Okay, that's really good. Thank you for explaining that. So I think that you've called the stakes correctly, that it is a conflict for the view of the world, the view of life that's going to prevail. The secular view, which is really religious, in fact, we could say the wokeism, she's fighting against wokeism. It is a religious point of view, every much as religious as Christianity is, if we had time to look through that. And because it's a religious view, it explains everything, and it explains everything in a way that's contrary to what the Bible says. And so when you ask the question about feminism, feminism has different variations. So there's complete secular feminism, there's early stage feminism. I think that advanced egalitarian ideology right now is actually favoring women over men. I think that it's manifest itself in the whole transgenderism thing. I think that it's going to go further from that to the complete breakdown of sexuality and sex and all those things. So let's just describe the basics. The basics are, how are we going to understand the relationship between men and women? And historically, coming from a Christian point of view, there was a very clear idea of what a man was supposed to be and was supposed to do. They didn't always do it, and so there was a real negative view in recent years on men who didn't live the kind of life God wanted them to. They were oppressive, they were misogynistic, they were tyrants at times. And so now what has happened is seeing the downside and not being educated on the upside of the sacrifices that men historically made because of the Judeo-Christian point of view out of which their understanding of life was birthed. Because we've not been taught of all the heroism and all the great things men did, and the many millions and billions of fathers who love their wives and children. We haven't heard about all that. All we've heard are the bad things, because the narrative is the bad things. So women like J.K. Rowling think, well, that's not right, and so we're going to have a new world, and we're going to be feminists. And the feminist ideas, they don't work. And the problem is now, women are in a worse place. Families, for sure, are in a worse place than ever before. And that's a long answer to tell you that I think we just need to get back to more of a biblical vision of manhood.
And so one of the things I think I argued last week, I don't think it was during Tennessee Harmony, but this is part of my thinking that I think J.K. Rowling and the modern day feminists don't understand, is that a lot of the customs and traditions that were established globally but let's just zero it down to America because that's what we understand the most. We're a reflection of reality.
Yeah.
And so if you go back to the 1700s and why men were predominantly in the workforce, women couldn't do and weren't interested in doing the work that was available at that time and was required at that time because of where we were technology-wise. There were no cars. You walked to hunt.
Well, and there was so much of it was agricultural and the
Farming,
plowing,
yeah.
and
Yes,
all of
that.
that women were not built for.
Right. And so where we were at that time, that established customs and traditions. And so I think modern women look back, look how sexist those guys were. Look at these sexist traditions. And they were really just traditions and customs established to meet the reality of what they were living with at that time.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is my problem with applying today's mentality to long ago times. And so a lot of the feminist movement is a reaction to, it's what I argued last week, I believe, was that like it's a debt is owed us. You kept us down. You kept us out of the workforce. That's why women aren't leading all these companies, because you set up a system that kept us out of the workforce. No, we didn't. No, because those men that were up on skyscrapers in New York in the early 1900s, I believe that 1 of 7 of them fell to their death. Women didn't want that job. And couldn't do that's not some sexist system we had where, okay, yeah, we'll go up and build these skyscrapers and 1 in 7 of us will fall to our deaths. That wasn't out of sexism that we went and did that men did that. That was actually out of like, hey, this is my role, this is my responsibility. I take the risk of the life and death risk. And so I'm right now, I think that she thinks feminism is the only solution. What you're arguing and what I'm arguing is a better form of Christianity is actually the solution. Don't create this new religion called feminism.
Yeah.
We got a religion that will work.
Yeah.